Welcome to Whisperer of Madness. If you're enjoying the story, consider liking the video and subscribing. It really helps grow the channel and this community. King Arthur, where is this? Belinda looked bewildered, the energy undulations on her body suppressed to below morning star. Sophia, on the other hand, was much weaker, and she did not change very much. Is this your original world? Ignis was no better, having almost fallen to morning star herself. The more powerful a world was, the more its residents would be suppressed in the Magus world. Since those like Sophia posed no threat, the suppression she faced was the weakest. Upon seeing this, Leyland looked to be deep in thought before he clapped his hands. Ladies, welcome to the Magus world. This is the first level of the underground world. I hope you like it. Now that their attention was on him, Leyland rubbed his nose. Now that you're here, you're free to do as you please. Of course, if you follow me, I'll take care of you. One more thing. I've already got married here. Still, although I have more than one wife already, I wouldn't mind having a few more. Oh, so Brother Leyland is already married? Can Sophia meet the other sisters? Sophia spoke in a manner as if she knew Leyland well. While her disease had been healed, she was rather childlike in her everyday manners. Of course, while watching her crafty eyes, Leyland knew what she was thinking. You scoundrel! Belinda cursed once at him, but did not leave. Ignis watched her and followed expressionlessly. All right, so you're not planning to leave yet. Follow me for now. I'll teach you some general things about the Magus world and the language. Next, we'll visit the Arthur family and have you settled. Leyland laughed and brought the three snake girls along. While they were leaving, his eyes slanted towards the east, a hint of a smile within them. This was a place very far from Leyland's laboratory, in a huge kingdom's capital city. Many beastmen, dwarves, elves, and subterranean humans coexisted in peace, and the place seemed to be very prosperous. The aura from another world. A streak of black light burst out from a secret room in the capital of the Arthur kingdom. Flickering in the air a few times, it howled towards the heavens. The many defensive spell formations seemed not to notice the black ray of light, allowing it to enter without any resistance at all. King Arthur! King Arthur! Many powerful beings exclaimed. Within the palace, a middle-aged man wearing a crown was completely shocked. Has the ancestor been awoken from his slumber? Have there been any major changes? An outsider from another world has invaded and is even in our kingdom, said a fair, blonde man within black light. His eyes were blue, and his features so sharp he seemed chiseled. He had an aura of hot-bloodedness and firmness. What is this faint feeling that makes my heart beat so quickly? A trace of concern surfaced in the white man's eyes, but he quickly drowned it out. As a peak-breaking dawn monarch, he was like a lightning flash. He was able to find Leyland's previous laboratory in the shortest time possible, and though it had already been abandoned, he was still able to discover a great many things. It's in the style of what is used in the central continent. There's an astral gate as well. Is it an existence from another world brought back by some magi? In that case, this person's strength. While he was bewildered, he heard a transmission. The information contained within immediately got the middle-aged man to get moving again, chasing after Leyland and the others. Brother Leyland, why are we suddenly stopping? Sophia was extremely curious about everything around her, and her questions had no end. We're waiting for someone. Leyland indifferently twitched his lips in a slight sneer. Friend or foe? Belinda got to the point. He isn't qualified to be either. Leyland waved his hand dismissively. Immediately after, a streak of dark light burst through the skies, and while it was heading closer, the soul strength it emanated caused Ignis' expression to change. Rank 6. It's a rank 6. No, peak rank 6. As one who had been a rank 5 and a guard of the holy city, Ignis' knowledge and perception was clearly ahead of the two sisters. But then her face changed, and Ignis ridiculed herself with a wry laugh after taking a glance at the calm Leyland. Then again, what is a rank 6 to you? Even though she hadn't watched the terrifying battle between Leyland and the other dignitaries, she had seen Leyland devouring numerous rank 6 gluttonous beasts, and her mind had been completely blown. Revered Magus, my name is Arthur. I welcome you to the subterranean world. At this moment, the black ray arrived before Leyland and the others, revealing the figure of a fair middle-aged man. Arthur. Leyland's brows furrowed slightly, but they quickly smoothed out. The king who established the Arthur kingdom. Pardon me for my rudeness. Your humble servant prefers to be called Arthur. What does the power of kings mean to us? Arthur smiled gently and seemed affable, lacking any arrogance in his bearing. Of course, this could have to do with Leyland's strength. If not for it, he wouldn't be treating them with such a good attitude. Arthur, rank 6 Magus. Estimated stats: strength, 21 agility, 11 vitality, 19 spiritual force, 40 soul state, peak breaking dawn. Comprehension of laws, darkness, gravity, earth. With just a short exchange, the AI chip had silently gathered his stats. It had evolved with Leyland's own advancement and had begun to touch the power of laws itself. Nothing below rank 7 could hinder its scans and analyses. These stats aren't those of the past, but formed using the new measurements of the heavenly astral race. Leyland rubbed his chin. While we're both peak breaking dawn, based on the previous standards, his spiritual force hasn't even reached 10,000. This shouldn't happen. Is there a difference in the comprehension of laws? Leyland had a feeling that those horrifying stats he had were not comparable to regular peak-breaking dawn magi. Based on the information given by the AI chip, as well as my instincts, while his comprehension is above that of the blazing flame monarch, it's still only at 20 to 30%. Leyland stroked his chin. Within Arthur's eyes, this black-haired Magus seemed young, but his aura had an unfathomable depth to it. It had a force field like a giant beast who could devour everything, and a hint of sincere dread began to surface in Arthur's mind. How can that be? I've gone through countless bloody battles in the subterranean world, and I'm the person who set up the Arthur Kingdom. I've even seen those existences of laws before. Existences. King Arthur's eyes suddenly widened as if he had thought of something, and he unconsciously used a little bit of the power of the laws of Earth. The three girls fell to the ground. From their point of view, the entire subterranean world had begun to move. The suppression from the phantom figure of the continent made them feel that their souls would be extinguished in the next second. "You're probing me," Leyland chuckled. No matter how terrifying that force was, everything around him was melted away by limitless devouring power. It finally even swallowed up Arthur's phantom world in one bite. "Ha!" Arthur panted roughly. After seeing this, he did not hesitate to kneel down on one knee. "Arthur hereby greets the mighty lord at rank 7. Please bestow upon me your name, and please forgive me for my previous actions." "Rank 7, Leyland laughed involuntarily. "I'm at most half a rank 7. As for my name, just call me Leyland." "Yes, Lord Leyland." Arthur felt like he was being raised up by some invisible gigantic force, involuntarily moving his body into a standing position. The expression on his face became even more reverent. "Why? What makes you think I'm a rank 7 Magus?" Leyland's brows furrowed as he asked Arthur. Through the king's explanations, he managed to get a better understanding of the path forward for rank 6 magi. Based on his words, even peak-breaking dawn magi would not possess strength like Leyland's. All their stats, including spiritual force, were about the same as his own. Only their comprehension of laws was different. Once comprehension of a law crosses 50%, breaking dawn magi will descend into a dormant state and undergo a terrifying qualitative change where all stats increase by a large amount. If comprehension of the law cannot be completed to reach rank 7, one will be unable to wake up for eternity. Leyland touched his chin, thinking back to his own situation. His situation was extremely unique. His law of devouring had completely captured Beelzebub's law of gluttony, but because the true body still existed, there was still a bit left before the law could be completed. He was now right at the boundary of rank 7. But I've basically passed through the stage of the qualitative change that rank 6 magi go through, and my body has already begun to be infused with the power of laws. The distance to rank 7 is paper-thin. Leyland instantly thought this through. He basically had one foot in the door to rank 7, and his stats were definitely comparable to regular beings of laws. Those rank 6 breaking dawn monarchs whose stats were similar to King Arthur would only undergo a huge increase in strength after the period of deep slumber. At that point, they would either die or successfully reach rank 7. Leyland was a special exception. Only breaking dawn magi who comprehend above 50% can undergo a qualitative change due to the power of laws, he asked indifferently. "Yes, my lord." Arthur glanced at Leyland bewilderedly. From his perspective, this person was definitely a rank 7 Magus of laws, but for some reason he couldn't understand he denied it. Whatever it was, treating him as respectfully as possible would never be the wrong decision. "Though I really wish to enter rank 7, the realm of laws, the path of the comprehension of laws is too challenging. Thousands of years have passed, and I still have yet to reach that threshold." Subjugation. Arthur forced a smile as he spoke. a hint of fear in his voice. Even after reaching the threshold of 50%, I wouldn't dare enter the slumber of qualitative change and go through with such a huge gamble. Why? Because of the rate of failure. Leyland suddenly understood. Yes, my lord. Terror was evident in Arthur's eyes. The magi who sink into that stage of slumber will gradually reach their death in their sleep if they cannot completely comprehend the law. Ever since the ancient final war, I've never heard of anyone who has succeeded. In other words, no magi have advanced to rank 7 since the ancient war. Leyland stroked his chin, suddenly feeling like he had been extremely lucky. Though his method of advancing had been different from regular magi, and it had also happened in another world, he had escaped some trouble. Yes. Arthur nodded grimly. Until today, the only existences of laws that I know are the Mother Core, Death Sovereign King, and all those monarchs who existed during the ancient era. They stay below the 7th level of the subterranean world and rarely show themselves. As expected, it's not that there aren't powerful existences protecting the Magus world. They're just staying in the subterranean world. Leyland nodded, eyes glinting. He'd already suspected this. With the Magus world's status, even after going through the ancient final war, there should have been some rank 8 existences that still remained. Just a dormant world would not be enough to hinder those from other worlds who comprehended laws from spying on it. In that case, the underground of the Magus world is more valuable to those existences than the surface. It seems that they see the central continent like it sees the south coast. That's why they treat it with disdain. Leyland suddenly understood how their thought process. This was the only reason that made sense. If not, with their strength, the central continent would be quivering at their feet all the time. Are there ample resources in the subterranean world? Leyland suddenly looked towards Arthur. This question evidently stunned Arthur for a moment. From the astral laboratory, he could tell that this Lord Leyland had come from the surface. Was he perhaps coveting the subterranean world? While he was agonized about doing so, Arthur did not dare conceal anything. The 7th level that's already been opened up has more ample resources than the central continent. The lower the level, the more this proportion will increase. Many great items have appeared that even Breaking Dawns would go crazy over as well. Though I'm not sure about the levels below the 7th. There are rumors that the world there is monstrous and grotesque, holding huge benefits for those who have comprehended laws. Huge benefits, Leyland touched his chin. The resources on the surface of the world are meager for beings of laws. The only thing they need is further comprehension and guidance on their path ahead. Could it be that there are places in the subterranean world that make comprehending laws easier? At this thought, Leyland's eyes brightened. Perhaps I should find an opportunity and explore the depths of the underground. After all, I can be considered one of the upper class in the Magus world. It's easier to improve if I can interact with similar beings. Leyland made some plans, but obviously would not state them. Arthur, did you come here for them? Leyland pointed towards Belinda and the other two. Yes. Only then did Arthur glance at the girls, but he no longer seemed to mind. It is my responsibility to take care of the security of this administrative region. However, with Lord Leyland around, there's no need for me to do so. It had to be said that this Arthur could easily adapt to changing circumstances. Of course, that might be because he had understood and experienced Leyland's strength, which was why he no longer had any thoughts of rebellion. Good. I'm going to meet an old friend. Come with me. Leyland nodded and headed towards the Laya's family. Arthur laughed wryly and, like a servant, ducked his head while following at the back. This was the territory of Eames' family. Numerous steep hills emitted a metallic luster, and at its heart was the Laya's family's residence. Huge blue thunderbirds descended every once in a while, bringing with them the booming of thunder. This was a perilous area for all outsiders, but for Leyland there was absolutely no danger. Eam, your old friend S here. His tangible soul force scanned the area, and Leyland immediately broke through the heavy defenses of the Laya's family, finding Eam in a secret room. This voice, and this sort of. Eam Laya's hand shook in the midst of his experiment, and a test tube exploded. However, he paid no mind to this and turned into a blue thunderbird that soared into the sky. Leyland, my friend, so it's you. The body of the blue thunderbird immediately shrank. The hill-like creature turned into a blue-haired Magus with silver pupils and fixed his attention on Leyland. I've already made the necessary preparations here, but you made me wait for so long. On top of that, why have all my attempts to reach you been blocked? Evidently, The contract Leyland had signed in order to placate the Laya's family was not of much importance to Leyland, and he lacked sincerity in going through with this. After all, he'd been under the all-snake curse then. Who would put more effort in this area? This was only because it had only been a short time of a few years. A few years meant nothing to high-ranked Magi, which was why despite Eames' unhappiness, he did not seem too aggressive about this. Otherwise, if he were to see Leyland now, he might even have tried to attack him. My apologies, I got caught up with some work. My reason in coming here is to restart the plans and agreements. Of course, some conditions must be amended. Eames was a rank 5 warlock that had inherited an ancient bloodline, but that was nothing in Leyland's eyes. If not for his family's usefulness, Leyland would just have devoured the whole place. Restart, amend, and also, your aura. Eames' expression showed his obvious doubt. He sized Leyland up and down, suddenly feeling that Leyland's aura was somehow different from before. However, he couldn't quite say what had changed, which made him want to vomit blood in his frustration. With Leyland's current strength, concealing his energy undulations was very easy, though he wouldn't need to do that usually. Just the slight change to his appearance, combined with the power of laws pervading his every move, had caused him to feel like his vision had been blurred. I found a very suitable partner in this trade. Arthur, continue talks with him. Leyland waved his hand. At this point, he didn't care much for the trade and profits between the first level of the subterranean world and the central continent. He even felt that it was unimportant. However, this business would be a huge help for the Ouroboros clan, so he finished it. Here in the subterranean area, Leyland had even found genuine overseers and partners. Belinda and Ignis both had experience in managing large organizations and were pretty strong themselves. They would probably just take some time to get used to the workings of this business and completely master it. The profits from managing this area were enough for them to survive luxuriously in the Magus world without needing to rely on Leyland. Long time no see, Eames. Having been mentioned by Leyland, Arthur rubbed his nose and stood out. You are, Your Majesty. It was only at this point that Eames noticed Arthur standing behind Leyland. Leyland did not emit much of an aura, but a body of laws naturally had a very powerful, attractive force that caused Eames to completely disregard the people beside him. Your Majesty, why have you come here? Eames' mouth went wide open in his shock. As the person who had established the Arthur Kingdom, King Arthur's name had spread throughout the first level of the subterranean world. He was a peak rank 6 Breaking Dawn Magus, whose battle prowess surpassed all others. It was his exceeding his peers that had allowed him to build the foundations of the kingdom. The glorious reputation of the name, King Arthur, was not gifted by anyone. Arthur had built it himself through trials of blood and fire. There was enough blood from high-ranked Magi on his hands to dye his entire palace red. As the leader of the Laya's family, Eames was King Arthur's vassal. After all, the Laya's family was on the Arthur Kingdom's land, and even if he wanted to save his family from anything, Eames would still have to lower his noble head to the man. I obey Lord Leyland's instructions and am here to assist, as well as be a witness. Arthur bowed very deeply. He had long since treated Leyland as a rank 7, and just a mere thought from this existence could consign him to eternal damnation. He obviously would not dare to slight him by appearing even a little arrogant. After hearing these words, Eames' eyes were filled by shock. Lord Leyland. For even the peak Breaking Dawn King Arthur to call him a lord? Eames looked frozen, but he already had an inkling of what was going on. Leyland, whom he had seen years before, probably had an earth-shattering transformation in strength, or perhaps had he hidden his true strength right from the start. Meanwhile, with the support of the Arthur Kingdom, and with King Arthur as the witness, it was necessary that they proceed with the trade with no reservations. However, perhaps the entire Laya's family would now sink to a subordinate position under Leyland's strength. Eames smiled wryly and knelt before Leyland. Eames Laya's greets Lord Leyland. Ignoc's multicolored carpets and pieces of furniture gave off a slight aroma within a luxurious room, as if there had been some special incense burnt here that gave a simple yet elegant feeling. Leyland surveyed the surroundings and nodded in satisfaction. Though he had been a guest here before and already experienced the VIP rooms of the Laya's family, the grandeur of this room had reached a whole new level. This had once been Eames Laya's mansion. Of course, once Leyland revealed his intentions to stay overnight, he had arranged this place for him with the fastest speed possible. Leyland currently stood before a huge oil painting, observing the portrait of a blue-haired warlock. The man in the portrait looked somewhat similar to Eam. It was probably the founder of his family. After being focused on for a period of time, the portrait's eyes flickered, revealing an expression full of terror as if it was alive. However, it could not speak nor move, and only watched Leyland imploringly. The slight remnants of a conscient, Leyland nodded, taking in the oil painting. There seems to be a secret semiplane as well, with the bloodline and body of an ancient mature thorned thunderbird. Looks like this must be the final trump card of the Laya's family. Eam had no way to withdraw this important mechanism in such a short time. He must have been counting on Leyland not discovering it, or caring for the more luxurious items, which was why he'd failed to conceal it. Interesting. Leyland stroked his chin while sitting on the sofa, allowing the portrait to heave a sigh of relief before it returned to its previous frozen expression. Leyland truly held no malicious intent towards something like that. Though a rank 6 bloodline would have been very attractive to him at rank 5, he had currently reached the peak of breaking dawn, almost entering the realm of laws. He cared nothing for it. "Brother Leyland, this couch is so comfortable." Sophia was holding a little bare bolster, rolling on the sofa like a mischievous little child. However, the crafty glint in her eyes made it clear that she had other intentions. The sisters had always thought well of Leyland, especially Sophia. She had practically glued herself to his side. Furthermore, even though Belinda had her doubts about this, it was a matter of time before she accepted him. Perhaps there was another one coming his way. Of course, Leyland naturally accepted benefits that fell at his feet. He stroked his chin, his lips arching at an angle. With a wave of his arm, the surface of the oil painting was covered by a layer of darkness. "Sister Sophia, do you want to play a fun game with me?" The time of pleasure soon passed. Sophia's legs had gone weak, and she had to be taken away by Belinda. While leaving, the snake girl glared hard at Leyland, a myriad of emotions hidden in her look. Ignis herself had watched on like it was all a show, but she too didn't understand why a blush had appeared on her cheeks. "What clever women they are," Leyland thought in evaluation as he closed the door apathetically. These women had been smart enough to leave him in privacy. "Come out." Leyland now looked extremely calm as his eyes shifted to the cupboard. Plop. Blop, the ground seemed to melt in an instant, emitting black bubbles. A layer of orange appeared, crawling through the room. In the blink of an eye, the room had changed around Leyland. Watching it, a thought sprang to his mind. "Is this some space folding apparatus?" He stroked his chin. In this new environment, a black door of light appeared from the cupboard and was pulled open. A Magus wearing a swallow-tailed coat and a hat slowly walked out with a walking stick in hand. The man wore a pair of golden spectacles with round lenses, a complicated and intricate chain linking to them from behind his ear. "Nice to meet you. This humble servant here is called Ignox." The Magus who came forward took off his hat and bowed elegantly. "A being of laws who has only just reacted to me now. That's beyond my expectations." Leyland sized up this person with interest. Through his comprehension of laws, he had evidently realized that the body of this person was merely a form that the other party had chosen at will. The main body, on the other hand, was merely a bundle of mist with a complicated black ring of light at the middle that had some unique rhythm, enveloped by the dense power of laws. A deep and dark aura emanated from it like a bottomless abyss, intimidating and overwhelming. This was a true rank 7 Magus, a being that had completely grasped a certain law. "I am Leyland Farlier. Greetings, my lord." Leyland was not that surprised that this being had arrived. The sole force of those who comprehended laws could scan the entire central continent in an instant. Though it could not be used to scan every single ant on the ground, immense energy waves could not escape its detections. Leyland himself hadn't concealed the aura of his laws, something that allowed him to easily be sensed by others who at such ranks. This encounter was his goal. For better or worse, he was from the Magus world and he had to make contact with the original beings of laws there. Tusk. The power to devour all mass, and such a terrifying bloodline force. I hadn't seen such a bloodline source before. Knox's eyes showed his astonishment. Even without having passed through the boundaries to become an existence of laws, Mr. Leyland's strength isn't lacking at all when compared to us. Leyland accepted Ignox's flattering without hesitation. His body was now incomparably close to rank 7, and on top of the mysteries of his devouring law, his other abilities put him on par with a rank 7 law-wielding Magus. Our Magus world hasn't given birth to a new rank 7 since the ancient war. Mr. Leyland's existence is truly a cause for celebration. Ignox seemed very excited. I'm only a minor warlock from the south coast, and I know little regarding the world of rank 7s and higher. I hope Mr. Ignox can properly guide me. Leyland's words were humble. But of course, as the higher ranks of the Magus world, it is our duty to help each other. Ignox nodded solemnly. Also, there are some things that I need to warn you about. While you've yet to completely enter rank 7, your strength has already reached that point, which is why some restrictions apply to you. That's reasonable. I won't go against them, Leyland nodded. Ignox noticed there seemed to be a loophole in Leyland's words, but he paid no heed to it, laughing while not the least bit concerned. It's very simple. You cannot deliberately prevent the Magus world's world will from recovering. Also, each of us has a fixed region whose defense we're in charge of, and you'll need to thwart the invasions of any beings of laws. For instance, I'm in charge of the 1st to 4th levels of the subterranean world. Other than that, even if you were to massacre a whole continent, nobody will bother with you. Leon's eyes twinkled. Is the world will still dormant? Is it because of the ancient final war? Yes, the ancient final war. The dusk of the gods and the fall of the Magi's glory, Ignox narrated in a singing voice, a trace of fear in his words. What exactly happened during the ancient final war? Leyland asked urgently. You will find out the specific details soon enough. To sum it up, the two worlds fought in order to achieve the chance to reach rank 9, and a large number of existences of laws fell. While Ignox said this in a relaxed manner, Leyland could picture the mountains of corpses and seas of blood. Even at its peak, the Magus world wouldn't have spawned an existence of laws in 1,000 years, but so many had died. After the war, our world will sank into a deep sleep. The combined conscient of the world of gods and the higher gods was the same. They even engaged their crystal system and prevented any outsiders from spying on them. Left behind, we first withdrew to the subterranean world, guarding the world as close as we could while comprehending laws, Ignox said. Is the Magus world's will sleeping at the Earth's core? Leyland stroked his chin. The nearer the place is to the world will, the more conspicuous the laws become. The world origin force will also take care of Magi. It's no wonder that those existences of laws stay deep underground and won't come out. After signing the contract, Lord Leyland will become a part of us too. Ignox got to the point. I am here to notify you about this. There's about a decade until we're done with the preparations for the contract, and when the time comes we'll send you an invitation. He seemed to never have considered Leyland's rejection. Of course, Leyland wasn't foolish enough to make enemies out of the existences of laws in the Magus world. I understand, Leyland nodded solemnly. And the area of governance. Ignox rubbed a large ruby in his hands. Lord Leyland came from the surface world, so how about taking care of that area? The danger is at a minimum there, and there aren't any other existences of laws guarding it anyway. Danger at a minimum? Leyland had no idea whether to laugh or cry at this point. He found it both funny and embarrassing. Perhaps getting him to guard the surface was purely from Ignox's good intentions. Of course, this matched Leyland's plans, and so he agreed without hesitation, of course. With the important business done with, Ignox and Leyland continued to chat, his enriching and wide knowledge astounding Leyland. The important matters to be noted after reaching rank 7 were extremely beneficial to him. When he had to leave, Leyland felt reluctant to part with him. Distribution, thank you for your magnificent hospitality, but I must be off. I look forward to my next meeting with you. Ignox waved at Leyland and entered the door of light in front of the cupboard. A great deal of rust vanished, and the room returned to what it had looked like before. The feeling of another space being connected here gradually dissipated. Leyland's eyes were filled with an inquisitive glint. This travel, is it an evolution of the laws he grasped? Seems rather effective when traveling between worlds and the astral plane. My lord, may we enter? Eames' voice was heard from behind the door. It had only been a short conversation, but that had taken up the whole night. Of course, for beings like Leyland, this was nothing at all. Even laboring for 10 years without any rest would not give rise to feelings of exhaustion to someone with a law body. Is it an innate upgrade of the body itself, or just part of a sequence of transitions? Leyland gazed at his pale palm, looking lost in thought. He could sense that he was coming into a more powerful state, which was what he was aiming for anyway. Come in, shaking his head. He no longer dwelled on these matters. He ambled over to the sofa and took a seat while watching Eam, Arthur, and the rest enter. "I hope Lord Leyland had a good rest yesterday." Eam gave him a smile, trying to flatter him. For someone like him who was incomparably arrogant, making such an expression was difficult. His facial muscles even twitched uncoordinatedly. However, after learning from King Arthur that Leyland had already passed the realm of Breaking Dawn and reached rank 7, becoming a Magus of Laws, Eam no longer had any arrogance left in him. That bit of bloodline and strength that he possessed was nothing at all in Leyland's eyes. The Laya's family could only quiver under Leyland's gaze. Their life or death could be decided in just a mere second with a single thought from the Warlock. It was natural to bend and try to curry favor with the strong when it came to the life or death of the family. He was the one in charge after all. "It was okay," Leyland nodded, answering indifferently. "If we can satisfy Lord Leyland with our service, then it will be an honor for the entire Laya's family," Eam said with a smile. As a noble, he had taken lessons in etiquette before, and while most things were long forgotten, it hadn't taken long for him to master it again. "All right, I'll tell you the arrangements for the passage and trade deal," Leyland said as he gesticulated. He'd long since gotten tired of hearing these words of flattery, but he had more important things to do than insult this family head. "Please instruct us." Arthur and Eam immediately bowed respectfully. Belinda and Ignes nearby seemed despondent as they viewed this scene. No matter how they felt, being able to subdue a rank 5 bloodline warlock and a peak rank 6 monarch had already proved Leyland's incomparable strength. "All right, I'm planning to open up a plane that serves as a passage for trade between the two sides. The supervisor here will be Eam, with Arthur assisting. Any questions?" "The Lord's will is our command." Eam and Arthur lowered their noble heads deferentially and appeared exceptionally docile. They had no resistance towards Leyland. "Good. Your rewards shall be 30% of the net profits of the trade." Leyland did not hold back at all and disregarded the previous agreement. With his strength, the two of them would not even resist even if he got them to work without any benefits. 30% of the profits was already very kind of him. No, it wasn't quite kindness either. Leyland sincerely wanted to keep the trade here going, and as a huge source of revenue for his organization, it was necessary to give the two supervisors here some benefits that would motivate them to work harder. If not, if he put too much pressure on them, things would only work out in the short run. There would definitely be long-term problems. While Leyland would be able to suppress and pressure the others to keep control, was it necessary? His own organization would live well and eat well, while the scraps would be given to those outside. That was the way for things to maintain like this in the long run. "Understood," Eam immediately agreed. While it was much lower than the previous agreement, he was already very satisfied. With such differences in their strength, how could they come to a fair agreement? The Laya's family's benefits had shrunk by a large amount, and he would still need to share it with King Arthur. The other man would take most of the profits, but there were still benefits for himself. He wouldn't need to invest anything at all, and it would still be considered a source of income for the Laya's family. In addition, Eam peeked at Arthur beside him. With benefits as the reason to tie them down, it was already quite a good situation for the Laya's family, as this would give them a connection with King Arthur, not to mention the more terrifying Leyland. "That's not a problem." Arthur naturally did not oppose this. He, who had already reached peak Breaking Dawn, knew even better how terrifying existences of laws were. If Leyland were ever to rage, the Arthur kingdom could very well be destroyed in a single night. Hence, no matter how harsh the conditions were, Arthur could only agree. Leyland was evidently not using his strength to force him to work without any benefits, so he would not consider resisting. Leyland had guessed what they might be thinking, and since everything was within his expectations, he nodded. Though the two magi definitely had their own selfish motives, they definitely wouldn't dare show their unhappiness under the knowledge of Leyland's crushing strength. As long as they could maintain their distribution of benefits, that is. "Another thing. Belinda and Ignes will become my representatives and supervisors in the subterranean world, managing the matters here." Leyland then looked towards Belinda and Ignes. In his calculations, these two snake females would be the main people in charge and the key to expanding his organization. The two levels of trade profits from both the subterranean world and the surface could be used for expansion costs for the organization, but would also be more than enough for these three to lead a luxurious lifestyle with resources for their cultivation. The trade they were talking about. Both sides exceed a continent of the purgatory world in surface area. The benefits we'll be getting. Ignis made a quick calculation in her mind. Just a thought of the future profits left her wavering, unable to contain herself. She had easily deduced that the profits of such trade would be an astronomical number. Even her previous family would go crazy over it, and yet Leyland had merely tossed this over to them easily. It only made the gap between them more obvious. Is this the way a dignitary thinks? Even the wealth of 2 continents is dispensable to him. Ignis stared at the unfathomable Leyland, and then glanced at Belinda beside her, clenching her fists and making a decision. But I've never done it before. Is that okay? Belinda hesitated slightly, perhaps worried that she could not complete the task that Leyland had entrusted to her well. However, this attitude resulted in a smile on Leyland's face because this meant that she had already accepted the task. You don't need to worry about that. I've always had faith in your capabilities. Besides, Ignis, Arthur, and the rest will help you. In that case, I'll agree to it, Belinda nodded. Good, Leyland nodded, and numerous rays of lights were emitted. Boom, it was as if the world stopped in that instant. Even the most powerful amongst them, King Arthur, felt like he was a little boat in the vigorous, furious waves of the ocean, about to capsize at any moment. A streak of light shot in his direction, and he instinctively caught it. Arthur retreated several steps, looking stunned as he saw a black rune sizzling in his hands. The illusions had vanished. Now he found that everyone around had the same rune in their hands. This is my mark, and also a token that can be used for all trades. You can also use it to contact me. It'll go through as long as I'm in the Magus world. With strength incomparably close to that of Law's, all sorts of miracles appeared about Leyland. A Law rune that represented himself was just a part of it. Being given this symbol was tantamount to being branded by Leyland. Even if they met with other existences of Laws, they could get special treatment. Of course, that did not include his nemesis like the Snake Dowager, in which case they would meet a fate worse than death. After this ceremonial procedure, those with the runes could even make sacrifices to Leyland, getting boosts in power from his law of devouring that could fill their bodies. Though the Magus world isn't suitable for the large-scaled path of sacrifices, it should be able to sustain my unique method of passing on my power. With this, your safety is guaranteed. Leyland briefly explained the usage of the rune, while Arthur and Eam knelt in elation. Why are there only 2? How about Sophia S? Belinda questioned without any restraint. I gave it to her last night. Leyland's lips quirked in a slight smile, but Belinda immediately turned red as she cursed. All right, you can return and make all the necessary preparations. 3 days later, I will unseal the passage. Leyland waved his hand, and the rest withdrew. Even Belinda, who looked like she had something to say, retreated unwillingly after being pulled away by Ignis. What a beautiful world! Leyland headed to the window, pulling the curtains open. There were many Laya's family members around, as well as the distant scenery, all within his line of sight. The power to move mountains, just looking at beautiful scenery, is also a way of enjoying yourself. Leyland's eyes had a different look to them. He had previously been afflicted with the all-snake curse and had no choice but to struggle against the heavens. He had taken the risk to enter the purgatory world, dancing on the edge of a blade with no extra time to do something as mundane as enjoying the scenery. Now, however, after completely ridding himself of the curse on his bloodline, his body of laws, near rank 7, would last him over 100,000 years. With this much more time, he finally had time to breathe, released from his tight schedule. This was why he had spent so much effort on dealing with this bilateral trade. He had previously been someone who could not even take care of himself, so why would he bother with others? Now, with a lot more time and freedom, Leyland finally had the chance to consider the development of Ouroboros clan, the Farlier family, and so on. Taking care of this land and its profits should be able to keep the warlocks of the Ouroboros clan living well for thousands of years if managed well. And then there's the tiny issue in the central continent. Leyland stroked his chin. He was planning to use around a decade to take care of matters in the central continent and perhaps the whole surface of the Magus world. Besides getting his own people to succeed in life, he wanted to build up his own power. Whatever it was, based on the oral agreement with Ignox, he was going to have to take care of this land anyway. The subterranean existences would pay no heed to his actions. In their eyes, the surface of the Magus world is not only incredibly small, but also produces few resources. It possesses no resources beneficial for those existences of laws. Amongst the Magi, there are only a few rank 6s, and it's a remote and desolate place. They're not losing out by tossing it to me. After all, Ignox was tasked with the 1st to 4th levels underground, and each level is comparable to the surface world. Of course, the reason Ignox had done so was because Leyland had yet to properly advance, and he wanted to ease his work. That's better for me anyway. I'll definitely go to the depths of the core, but not yet. Furthermore, I can do a lot with the surface world when it's completely under my control. 3 days later, in front of the Thunderbird Hololand, numerous members of the Laia's family, under Eam and Arthur's lead, gazed at the figure before them with respect. Leyland had long since gotten used to this, and continued to discuss matters with Ignis. How has the progress for building the organization been? It's going all right. Ignis tucked her long hair behind her ear. She had changed into feminine attire, which made the lines of her body more gentle, as if she was trying to show off her feminine charm. In terms of manpower, the Laia's family and Arthur Empire have already provided me with a lot of authority and help. Of course, I hope to use my own people. Ignis seemed very capable and experienced as she said. Trixus, for instance, is the second in command of the subterranean organization Shadow Taro. He recently eliminated the head and brought the whole organization to us. His earth elemental spells aren't half bad, and he has some experience commanding organizations. He's been a great help. Oh! Leyland's trucial force swept forth in an instant, and all the details of this Trixus that Ignis had pointed out appeared before his eyes. He recognized the power of our side so quickly, and his acts were so brazen. He has pretty good foresight. It was a pity that this was all. No matter how smart he was, he barely entered Leyland and Ignis' sights. In the face of absolute crushing strength, scheming lost all effect. You can decide on that with Belinda. I'm giving you free rein. Now let me completely remodel the ruins. The current place just isn't suitable as a trading base. Leyland floated into the air like a god. An awe-inspiring might like that of a divinity descended in that instant, causing many low-ranked magi to faint. A howling Targaryen appeared, with a pair of monstrous wings, single malevolent horn and pair of sharp claws growing from its belly. A unique spiritual force wave was transmitted to every Magus in the surroundings. HSS, I am the King of Devouring, the ruler of chaos and the void. Devouring, the King of Devouring, is this the power that the Lord wields? King Arthur murmured to himself, taking the initiative to kneel. This was his aspiration, the end he desired on his path. With his lead, the Magi behind him all sank to their knees one by one. Immediately after, they heard Leyland speak softly in midair. Innate skill, devour. Crash. It was as if a terrifying invisible mouth swept through the sky, large enough that once it passed, the entirety of the ruins had disappeared. Whether it was the defensive spell patterns of the ruins or the seals and reinforcements added by the Laia's family over the years, they could not affect it at all. There was no lightning, no flames, nor was there a backlash from any of the mechanisms in the ruins. It was as if the place had never existed. A wide expanse had opened up in the ground. An aerial view would show that the ruins had gone missing, replaced by a terrifyingly deep pit that looked like something had eaten into it. Many of the Magi were dazed, but some of the younger ones grew zealous as they cried out, "The Master of Devouring! The Devouring Ruler! All the unnecessary facilities have been destroyed, only the sealed pathway remains." A dark door brimming with light appeared slowly deep within the pit, seeming desolate. "Let there be soil," Leyland spoke faintly, and the earth howled. The ground trembled violently, and large amounts of earth squirmed upwards to fill the deep pit. The power of an existence that comprehended laws was divine, terrifying beyond belief. Moving mountains and suppressing seas with just a single thought. Is this the ability of a rank 7 Magus of laws? Leyland was very satisfied with his current control over laws. Through his comprehension and usage of laws, he even had the misconception that he was the world. Everything in the world is composed of and affected by laws. With my control and influence using my law of devour, even if I have less than 0.01% control over other laws, it is enough to unite the laws to form a fundamental change in everything. Leyland looked intoxicated by this. Rank 1 to 3 Magi might be more powerful than regular humans. Those at and above rank 4, the morning stars, radiant moons, and breaking dawns had all grasped the power to massacre and destroy countries. Those at rank 7 and above at the realm of laws lived and breathed with worlds, like the gods that overlooked all life from high ground. The radiance of eternity was already beginning to appear before Leyland. Let everything that exists in this world continue to exist for all eternity. Leonie's voice seemed to hold within holy light, scattering all over the beautiful surface of the earth. Rumble. A brand new construction with multiple buildings rose, encircling the spatial passage at the heart of it and creating a gigantic triumphal arch. Numerous green stones flickered with dazzling lights on the construction. This is everlasting solidification spells, reinforcement runes, conscient runes. The effect from this combination is enough for all the buildings to last without corrosion for above 10,000 years. That's the effect of only one sentence from my lord. A white-haired Magus with thick presbyopic glasses twitched as if he had epilepsy, eyes even glimmering with tears of happiness. This is the pinnacle of magic, to be able to directly leverage the power of the original laws. All seals shall corrode, and only the passage between the two areas shall remain eternal. Hualala. The arched door of light immediately emitted elegant and beautiful luster. The layers on the seal crumbled one after the other, and the door of light unceasingly expanded until it merged with the whole triumphal arch, emitting shining rays of light. The spatial passage that has been reinforced with my laws should be able to be maintained for thousands of years, even if it works in overdrive every day. Blue rays flashed in Leyland's eyes, giving him this information in an instant. After grasping the power of laws, his thoughts were not lacking at all to the ultimate brain of his previous life, and perhaps even exceeded it. Only the AI chip, which had been with Leyland all this while and merged with his body, had gained immense benefits, and could therefore surpass Leyland's mind when it came to calculations. The tremors of the ground continued, and numerous buildings kept rising from the ground. In the blink of an eye, a whole Magus city had been established. This area shall be the base of your organization, and the name, let's call it Alabaster City. Leyland smiled at Belinda as he spoke, and saw the glint in her eyes. With Igni's command, the many magi before surged into the city, beginning more meticulous work and alterations, as well as any moving required. Leyland was accompanied by Belinda and Ignis and came to the heart of the spatial door. "You're not going back with me." Leyland glanced at Belinda. This pair had already accepted him long ago, and even Ignis seemed to have an inclination to do so too. It was just a matter of time. "No, I won't go. Don't you have a wife there?" Belinda bit her lips stubbornly. "I want to stay here in the city you made for me to guard all that is yours." Leyland had already guessed Belinda's thoughts. That matched with his wish anyway. "As you wish. This place will belong to you. Even the organization on the surface will have to heed your words after coming here." Leyland nodded while he stepped into the spatial door. Return and meeting in a flash of light, Leyland's figure disappeared immediately and reappeared in the eternal river pocket dimension. "Let me think." Leyland's expression was rather intrigued. The Twilight Zone, Central Continent, South Coast, and now the new subterranean world. It seems that I have more and more companions too. Could it be that this is the realm for me to spread my seed across the world and father many illegitimate children? Leyland thought, rather speechlessly. However, in terms of diversity, the more base samples there are, the higher the probability of mutated bloodlines cropping up. Belinda and the others, Alabaster Devil Snake and Three-Headed Python bloodline combined with my own Targaryen bloodline, is something to look forward to. Leyland's followed the customs of, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. He had already accepted the Magus world's traditions and did not feel like he was doing anything inappropriate. Only, compared to gathering them together and forming an enormous harem, perhaps scattering them across the continent like this would be easier for them to accept. Leyland stroked his chin and had a slight headache, and soon stopped thinking about it. The essence of his soul force began to slowly spread along the laws that were everywhere around him, making Leyland grasp everything around him in an instant. Afterwards, his mouth slightly fell agape, and he made a small sound of surprise. "I never thought that they would arrive so quickly." Accompanying Leyland's thoughts, several figures appeared in the main hall. The first was Freya, carrying an infant. She looked rather more mature now, with the bearing of a young married woman. She looked as if she could only see Leyland and nothing else. Gilbert, Emma and the other higher ranks in the Ouroboros clan also appeared immediately. Even the bloodline alliance's rank 5 Jeffrey appeared, who couldn't stop staring at Leyland with a bewildered expression. Towards the back of the crowd, there were still 2 others. The heads of the light and dark magi, Nanav and Eni, forced a smile towards him. Leyland, you've returned. Freya's eyes were filled with tears as she approached Leyland. Yes, I've returned. Leyland smiled at her and picked up Sire easily. His child was now a few years old, and he sized up this rather familiar stranger with an inquisitive expression. After seeing him, Leyland immediately thought of his eldest son in the Twilight Zone, Daniel, who was being raised by Selene. He was presumably as big as Sire. After I received your news and was made aware of the teleportation spell formation here, we immediately brought the elites of the Ouroboros clan and came here. We took control of this pocket dimension on our way, and all of the entrances have been guarded by our Chem-In warlocks. Emma smiled at Leyland and Freya and told them their reason for coming before, with a strange glow in her eyes. Only Nanav and Eni stood at the back and exchanged glances with each other. They then looked at how Leyland couldn't care less about them, and their hearts were filled with bitterness. They naturally now knew that Leyland had deceived them before and monopolized everyone's thoughts here. However, even if they knew, what could they do about it? The Ouroboros clan's strength, although it wasn't particularly outstanding in the central continent, was still considered absolutely monstrous on the south coast. Those who are known as light and dark magi could not be their opponent at all, and so they had immediately occupied the entire Eternal River pocket dimension. With just Gilbert and Emma, the 2 rank 4 warlocks were enough to make all the magi bow down before them. Especially once they knew Leyland was actually a rank 6 Breaking Dawn warlock, the highest-ranked magi of the entire central continent. They didn't dare to breathe one word of complaint and dejectedly surrendered their benefits. Leyland could clearly predict all of their thoughts and was only slightly shocked at how quickly they had acted. Even the Bloodline Alliance had been alarmed. Lord Leyland, was the earlier transmission real? At this moment, Gilbert respectfully bowed at the waist, and his eyes were full of expectations. At the same time, Jeffrey, who had been silently standing at the side, nervously clenched his fist. Oh, so it was because of this. The declaration I made when I broke through to rank 6, all of you heard it as well. Leyland smiled a little. So you're saying that you have already broken through the bloodline shackles and entered the realm of Breaking Dawn. Jeffrey nervously swallowed hard and asked in a hoarse voice. Yes, I have already completely broken free of the bloodline shackles and broken through to the Breaking Dawn throne. Leyland nodded. There was nothing in particular for him to deny. Also at the same time, he released a little of the imposing aura that he had been suppressing. With a loud hiss like the long warble of mountain rivers, an overwhelming, earth-shattering bloodline power with the essence of soul force swept across them. A projection of his true soul seemed to fill the room with the golden light of the sun, and rays of light seemed to pour down upon them. A powerful feeling of oppression could be felt, and only Freya and Sire at Leyland's side seemed completely unaware of it. Sire even opened his eyes widely, and seemed to try and grasp at the golden flames of soul force with his delicate, plump little hands. Naturally, the powerful flames of his soul was controlled by Leyland to be like an exquisitely gentle spring rain to Sire, and did not harm him in the slightest. The Emperor, the Bloodline Warlock Emperor, the Emperor of our Chem-In warlocks. Gilbert and Emma kneeled down, with a face seemingly full of tears. They had felt a hugely imposing aura from Leyland, which was far greater than the aura of a Chem-In serpent emperor that he previously possessed. This kind of feeling was as if he was their entire universe, and also the progenitor of their bloodline. Freya nervously caught her husband's hand, as if she was afraid he would slip away if she wasn't careful. The illusion I saw earlier was true. You've really become the new progenitor of our bloodline. Yes, it's true. From now onwards, our Chem-In warlocks have all completely escaped the Snake Dowager's suppression. Leyland nodded as he stroked Sire's head. Our wish. Our Ouroboros clan, and all the Chem-In warlocks' long-cherished wish has finally been realized, Emma said, while choking on her sobs. The Ouroboros clan was soaked in the tears of blood, one overwhelming suffering that the overpowering bloodline shackles caused, and now they finally had someone who succeeded in breaking the curse. The inspiration and hope that this success brought was absolutely incomparable. Leyland now was in the position where even if he made preposterous commands, the entire Ouroboros clan would perhaps cheerfully accept them. As expected, a rank 6 warlock, the power of the bloodline emperor. No wonder I had no ability to resist when you willed us to move here, Jeffrey mumbled, but the fact is he had gone in the wrong direction. A normal bloodline emperor, even if he could easily murder rank 5 warlocks, could not render them entirely unresisting and teleport them to places. Only those who were more powerful than laws could do this sort of thing, but the scope of Jeffrey's knowledge was too weak, and he had never seen a more powerful bloodline. Therefore, he had naturally misunderstood and made this connection, and Leyland could not be bothered to correct him. In any case, in their view it didn't matter whether it was a rank 6 bloodline warlock or a rank 7 with the power of laws. For them, this was completely unreachable and they were powerless to resist. According to the prophecies of legends old, the most powerful bloodline monarch has finally appeared. I didn't think that the prophesized one was you, and not Bevis, Jeffrey said, with a complicated expression on his face. So you're saying that? You had heard what Gilbert and the others said about the Bloodline Manifesto, and specifically came over to check because of your suspicions. Leyland stroked his chin, looking very calm. In the entire central continent, there was now no one who could deal with his strength. Naturally, they remained extremely motionless, and there seemed to be nothing to worry about. That's right. Once we heard his declaration, we all thought it was unbelievable. If it wasn't for Elder Alpha hypnotizing many Chemian bloodline descendants, and receiving the same news from everyone, we probably would have thought that you were drumming up a scam. Jeffrey's expression was rather complicated, as the Bloodline Alliance had pinned all its hopes on Bevis, and paid much less attention to other bloodline geniuses like Leyland. After all, as far as the warlocks knew, the idea that bloodline shackles could not be broken had already been accepted as unshakable common sense. As a result, compared to those warlocks with the potential to only reach rank 5, one can understand the reason why they had put most of their hopes on Bevis, who had a rank 6 bloodline. However, Leyland had now not only risen to a rank 6 bloodline warlock, but he had even broken through the bloodline shackles, the curse that afflicted all warlocks. How could Jeffrey not be amazed by this? Perhaps once the news spreads, the entire Bloodline Alliance, no, the entire central continent will go mad. And also there's Bevis. Oh dear. Jeffrey shook his head. After I finishing handling my business in the South Coast, I will definitely take you back. Leyland nodded his head. Now, please give me some time with my wife and my child. I want to attend my duties as a husband and father. Seeing Leyland so impolitely chasing him away, Jeffrey and the others didn't dare to resist, and left the great hall after politely bowing. Once they left the place and spread the news, it did not concern Leyland as to what kind of riotous scene appeared. Because at this time, Freya had already tightly grabbed Leyland's hands and began to burst into tears, and Leyland tenderly patted the back of Freya's hands and placated Sire. After this was all done, night had already fallen. So you mean? During all this time, not only did you go underground, you even directly went to the Purgatory world, and even saw the Snake Dowager, Trial's Eye, and all those legendary beings. Leyland and his family were now sitting at a sumptuous dinner table, and Leyland occasionally spoke a little of his experiences. Of course, it was the censored version, and he had hidden many of his secrets, but just that version was enough to shake Freya to the core. The world and beyond, I'm sorry, my beloved, I could not accompany you. Freya's eyes seemed to redden, covered in a layer of sparkling tears. No, you've raised Sire. For me and our Farlier family, this is the greatest contribution. Leyland stood up with the adorable little fellow. As his son had inherited his Serpent Emperor bloodline, his appetite was enormous. Occasionally, he was full of uncontrollable energy and emotional issues with his bloodline power arose. Naturally, for high-ranked warlocks, these couldn't be considered problems at all. In that case, the bloodline shackles of Chemian warlocks are all gone. Freya thought of the most crucial point. No, strictly speaking, only my bloodline shackles have disappeared. Your bloodline origins, however, now originate from me instead. Leyland spoke truthfully, but with my help, it won't be a problem for you to advance to rank 6. As for Sire, since he has my bloodline, there's an even greater probability for him to advance. What do you mean, an even greater probability? Sire, come here. Leyland smiled as he waved Sire over. Father! The little boy ran to Leyland with traces of fruit juice and grease still on his hands. Hug. All right. Leyland smiled as he hugged the boy to his chest. Sire, my blood, I give you my blessing. You will be blessed with incomparable glory, and the holy light will be at your side forever. Leyland declared. At that moment, the world seemed to come to a standstill. A tall phantom of a Targaryen winged snake appeared behind him. Leyland assumed a solemn expression on his face, as if he was a god proclaiming an oracle. It was a pity that all of the maidservants had long fallen into a dead faint, and only Freya was able to stubbornly remain clear-headed. However, the powerful phantom behind Leyland was also faintly trembling. Sire was already fast asleep, but a small phantom of a Chemian serpent emperor appeared on his skin. Although I could do this after you've grown up, but it would be easier to advance the bloodline when you're small. There was a tumultuous expression in Leyland's eyes as he said, My son, sire, thou shalt inherit my endless and eternal strength and become the Ouroboros clan's king. From today onwards, thou art Ouroboros, the serpent of infinity, Ouroboros. With a hissing sound, the Targaryen winged snake behind Leyland opened its jaws widely and poured out a great deal of smoke, which engulfed the phantom of the Chemian serpent emperor completely. The smoke finally transformed into a cocoon that had the phantom of the serpent emperor wrapped up within it. It seemed to be undergoing some mysterious metamorphosis. Sire was still sound asleep, but his aura had clearly changed. This is. As Freya saw this, she had completely lost her ability to speak. He must be very tired. Do take him away and let him have a good rest. Take care to increase his milk by several times today and tomorrow. Leyland smiled as he withdrew the phantom snake and his immense power to the point where he appeared to be a normal warlock. He had a gentle smile on his face, but the way he spoke made it clear that his orders were to be obeyed. Yes. Of course, Freya absent-mindedly carried Sire away, and one could tell that she was mired in bewilderment and shock. The power that Leyland had shown was already beyond the mortal realm. Even the blazing flame monarch was infinitely inferior compared to him. After completing this, Leyland walked to the window alone. His gaze seemed to pass through the eternal river pocket dimension to the starry sky outside. Daniel, my eldest son, Leyland said in a low voice. His soul force exploded with power that seemed to surpass the laws of the world and penetrated directly into the twilight zone. What is this power? His young wife, Selene, had a look of horror on her face as she was awed by the powerful force. With a loud crash, innumerable black particles began to converge into an enormous face. The intimidating aura flowed from its pupils gave off a suffocating feeling. However, Selene felt incomparably familiar with that face and said, Leyland. You're Leyland? My son, Daniel. The enormous dark face continued to speak, and Daniel struggled violently out of Selene's arms and ran towards the dark face. Thou will inherit my devouring and dreamscape ability and become the world's serpent, Jormungandr. Along with the face's proclamation, laws of devour and dreamforce poured like a stream from it and engulfed Daniel completely, immediately changing him at the cellular level. I've returned. Please take care of Daniel. At the end of the ceremony, Leyland's voice came from the enormous dark face, and soon after disappeared without a trace. However, the powerful feeling from earlier remained. Selene stroked her face and was finally convinced that she wasn't dreaming or was affected by some illusion. Daniel, my Daniel! Selene flew to Daniel's side, but after she realized he was only unconscious and not dead, she finally breathed a sigh of relief. At this moment, she discovered that Daniel had slightly changed. The most noticeable change was the black rune that he was tightly grasping in his hand. This black rune had a pure quality to it, as if it was the only one of its kind in this world. It had an inscription of a demonic winged devil snake, which seemed to be connected to some unfathomably powerful being. This is Leyland's aura. This is his rune. Selene stowed the black rune away with a look of astonishment on her face, and looking at the sleeping Daniel, she couldn't help but to mutter to herself, Leyland. What level has he reached now? From today onwards, the infinite serpent Ouroboros and the world serpent Jormungandr will be the two main bloodlines of my Farlier family. Leyland leaned against the balcony, with a tumultuous expression within his eyes. As Sire was the son of his first wife, Leyland envisaged him as inheriting his eternal and infinite power. However, this was only a seedling of a thought, and he would only be able to let Sire walk a future path to an even stronger bloodline if Leyland himself continued to constantly improve himself. As for Daniel, his eldest son, his inherited abilities of Devour and Dreamforce was already stabilized and mature, and would very quickly become his main strength in battle. Speaking of this, Sire's bloodline still has far more potential for growth and is full of unlimited possibilities. However, it is still far from perfect, and Daniel's bloodline is the most violent, but the future has already been fixed for him. Leyland stroked his chin, a smile blooming on his face. Their present and the future will be up to them. As an existence that was infinitely close to rank 7, Leyland now had the ability to do what many high-ranking magi thought was unimaginable, which was to make use of origin force. To pass on his own bloodline, and even make a copy of his own abilities, for Leyland it wasn't a particularly difficult thing. Only, the paths these two bloodline branches would follow was just within Leyland's imagination, and with the AI chip's assisted deductions, it still had some imperfect aspects. In reality, the titles he had given earlier, such as the World Serpent and the Infinite Serpent, were only given because they sounded nice, coupled with his momentary bad taste. However, he had the confidence that after several hundred years had passed, these two mature bloodlines would absolutely dominate the entire central continent and eclipse other bloodline warlocks. Even when Leyland had arrived at the rank 9 Eternal Realm, these two bloodlines of his would not be even a little bit inferior to those legends of old. Although I have already helped them to remodel and advance their bloodlines all originate from me, and for the time being their highest potential is only to rank 6. They can only continue to advance once I break through to a higher rank. Leyland carefully pondered this situation. He was thinking of establishing his clan, reproducing his bloodline, and investigating the probability of evolving his bloodline, and these were all tasks that the AI chip was constantly researching as well. Leyland very much looked forward to the surprise the bloodlines he had passed on would bring him, after going through nature's survival of the fittest and natural selection. The limitless azure sea, as far as the eye could see, with white waves sweeping across it. Leyland and the others stood on the deck of an enormous sailboat, and their bodies moved up and down with the waves. So you're saying that the work of transporting Chemian warlocks to the south coast is still ongoing? Leyland supported himself on the railing and slightly furrowed his brows. This speed is really far too slow. Within a month, the entire Ouroboros clan's headquarters must be moved to this place. Only then do we have enough people to develop the subterranean commerce. Although he had only complained a little, Emma and Gilbert broke out in a cold sweat behind him. In the end, it was only due to Gilbert and Leyland's earlier camaraderie as a master and disciple that he could stand out and say, "The South Coast has many dangerous areas, and some have even reached the extent of rank 4 in danger. We can only use reinforced models of airships and ship holds, and dispatch a Morning Star force to escort them, and consequently the pace is slow." The dangers near the South Coast weren't considered much to Morning Star magi, but for those rank 3 magi, it was as if it was a natural barrier to them. Although your argument makes sense, you really have to increase the speed. Of course, we all want to seize the generous profits of subterranean commerce as quickly as possible, so it's a pity. Emma and Gilbert exchanged a glance, with a wry smile on their faces. On my map, this most dangerous area is the dragon whale's territorial waters here. Yes, it is, my lord, Emma involuntarily answered him. Very good, then perhaps I can help. Leyland smiled lightly, but his expression suddenly turned icy. Come out now. A ghastly sound with icy majesty could be heard along the surface of the sea, but it was the energy undulations that came from their periphery that made Gilbert and Emma's expressions change drastically. Dragon whale successor * roar. A heavy noise sounded from the bottom of the ocean, and that was followed by a terrifying shadow, constantly emitting strong life force undulations. The pressure from its gigantuan body alone created a tsunami of magnitude 10, causing the ship that Leyland was on to waver violently. Float, Gilbert commanded with a sharp voice. Phew, phew. Thick streams of air sounded with unbounded energy and propped the entire ship, resulting in it being suspended midair. However, things were not so fortunate for the other marine tribes present. A mass of sharks, turtles, and a mishmash of sea creatures were carried away in the waves of this catastrophe. Many were even crushed to pulps of flesh, dyeing the surrounding waters red with blood. The shadow grew exponentially, its size comparable to that of a continent. And in the blink of an eye, a huge mountain blade tore through the surface of the sea like a knife blade, revealing an enormous black back. This is the dragon whale. Emma's jaw dropped. The leader amongst them, more accurately, and it could be the totem of the marine tribe. Leyland's smile faded quickly. Keep the noise down. The boundless sea calmed in tandem to Leyland's order. Two eyes the size of planets roamed in the deep sea, with beams of light projecting out of them. A phantom appeared, and it showed a middle-aged marine tribe man. Ulaz is here to meet my lord. A rank 6 king of the dragon whales. His physical size is already equivalent to that of a small continent. Thank God only rank 4 dragon whale appeared instead of this one when we were previously moving. Gilbert's eyes narrowed, and he immediately thought that he was hallucinating. What? He called Leyland my lord. Aren't they of the same rank? Moreover, a dragon whale with such an impressive size. Are you the one in charge of the dragon whale territorial waters, Ulaz? Leyland readily asked. Yes, my lord, as well as the neighboring few islets and the continent's marine tribe. This sole phantom called Ulaz replied in a cute manner. Even the lowest-ranked dragon whale could create great storms and waves in the south coast before, which led to great losses, and even Leyland had heard of it back when he was a rank 1 or rank 2 magi. Now, however, not even the strongest dragon whale king was trash worth mentioning in his eyes. This form is abundant in bloodline force, and if I devour it, the most it will increase my constitution by is 0.003. Leyland's blue eyes flashed as he instantly got the answer, and the dragon whale king suddenly shivered underwater. It's too little, and I also still have other uses for it. Leyland inwardly shook his head and gave up on devouring the dragon whale. Ulaz, I have something for you to do. A powerful force from Leyland, who possessed power over the creature's life or death, naturally began to speak to it. My lord, please command me. Your humble servant will not refuse under any circumstances. For the same reason, after sensing Leyland's unfathomable power and knowing its life was in Leyland's hands, the dragon whale king answered with the utmost respect. Very good, I am the Ouroboros clan's elder, and should you see the flag of the Ouroboros clan hung on any transportation, you are not allowed to attack them, and must even protect them, do you understand? I will follow your command, almighty expert. I will also send my children as escorts for your ships. Ulaz delightedly agreed. Very good, Leyland nodded. After he showed his intent to try to catch him, the enormous dragon whale disappeared from the ocean's surface, as if it was being chased away by some powerful magic. For the south coast, the rank 6 dragon whale king is an undefeatable existence. Leyland stroked his chin and said, Fortunately, it didn't pay much attention to the south coast in the past, or perhaps it had been dormant, otherwise the entire south coast could not endure its fury. Just the gathering of the dragon whale's children could isolate the south coast from the outside world, and if the dragon whale king itself personally attacked them, looking at its form, it could have easily devastated the entire continent. After all, although the south coast liked to toot its own horn as a continent, from the view of those magi from the central continent, it was only a slightly larger island. Did you hear that? Move everyone as soon as possible. I trust that there won't be any dangers from now on, Leyland said to the 2 Chemian warlocks after following the dragon whale king's departure with his eyes. You understood. Gilbert wiped the cold sweat from his brow. Just seeing Ulnaz from earlier made him feel fearful in his heart. And the person who could send the powerful dragon whale bending its knee, what rank had Leyland reached? Lord L. Leyland, would it be possible for you to tell us your current rank? Geoffrey, who had been equally terrified, stood at the side. He was more powerful than Gilbert and the others, and was already a rank 5 Radiant Moon Warlock. However, because of this, he could understand the dragon whale's power even more. At the same time, he began to perceive Leyland's change. In any case, even if it was the entire central continent's strongest monarch, could not be on the same level as the rank 6 dragon whale king, and this gave Geoffrey an enormous shock. Me. I'm still a rank 6 warlock. Leyland smiled and hid nothing. How could this be? However, I am only half a step away from rank 7. The latter half of Leyland's sentence sent the warlocks on the deck into a sluggish state. 7. Rank 7, the rumored god with the existence of laws. Geoffrey's eyes widened and his mouth gaped wide open as if he was an enormous toad. He foolishly looked at Leyland as he entered the hold of the ship. Duke Gilbert, Duchess Emma. Please could you confirm if I imagined that? After a moment of great bafflement, only then did Geoffrey try his best to readjust his expression back into place, and involuntarily ask, I'm afraid that you didn't mishear, Your Royal Highness Prince Geoffrey. Gilbert and Emma exchanged a glance with a wry smile on their faces and said, However, we're already quickly getting used to it. Lord Leyland has always been good at creating hopes and miracles. Now even Gilbert would not dare to consider himself as Leyland's mentor anymore. After all, he was an existence that was reaching rank 7. Rank 7. What could it mean? In the ancient times, it would still be considered the position of a celebrated expert. The conqueror of many worlds, many native tribes could only tremble and weep. And now, the Ouroboros clan had the strength of this rank. Gilbert realized that he could only giggle at this thought, and Emma was also leaning towards it. Rank 7. Rank 7, ah. Bevis, Offa, your plans will all come to nothing. Geoffrey could only react to that after a long time, and suddenly sighed with a lonely expression on his face. No matter who it was, once they had dealt with Leyland for some time, they would feel as if they had been struck a blow. Geoffrey had previously felt this several times, but this time it was an even more powerful blow. However, with Leyland, the springtime of our bloodline warlocks has arrived. After he had sighed, Geoffrey's eyes were filled with hope. Even if the central continent was currently filled with many monarch-ranked magi, to a semi-rank 7 they were as insignificant as ants. With just one slap, swathes of them would die. Geoffrey could already see the scene where bloodline warlocks would dominate the central continent. The enormous benefits that conquering the central continent would represent rendered their earlier schemes, and all those things they had previously worked hard to defend seem ridiculous. Perhaps this was exactly what that lord wanted. Geoffrey looked in the direction of the ship's hold, and Secrelty clenched his fist, an abnormal red flush appearing on his face. Under Leyland's operation, they had completed the long journey from the south coast to the central continent in the space of the few days. When Gilbert and the others had made this journey before, they had needed a few months. If it wasn't considered to have been too wasteful, Emma had even wanted to set up an astral gate in the south coast. Passing through the astral gate and Morning Star Realm's hub, and establishing a transportation spell formation that could cover the entire central continent was an important trump card to the bloodline warlocks. However, for the relocation of the entire organization, operating the astral gate might use up a little of their resources, but the numerous times used would all add up to an enormous figure that would make even Gilbert and the others faint. Even their entire family fortune wouldn't be able to afford it, and they could only use this long-distance travel to carry out their move. The astral gate's transportation could only be used to transport several people or several important goods, and wasn't suitable for the work of large-scale relocation. However, after everything was settled, Leyland was already prepared to construct an astral gate on the south coast. Not just the south coast, even in the Twilight Zone and the subterranean world, he wouldn't leave them out. Although large-scale transportation wasn't possible, but it would be very convenient for him to transport himself. Within the Morning Star Realm, Alpha looked even more old and clumsy compared to before, as if his body had decayed. His eyes, however, still had an energy that was difficult to hide. Wade, do you think Geoffrey's previous summon was real? Alpha rubbed his hands somewhat excitedly. He and Wade were both waiting at the transfer point, and even Bevis was also there, although his face was already incomparably gloomy. Geoffrey, as you both and I know, would not deceive us on this sort of thing. In addition, if that person has really risen to rank 6, we can confirm it once we meet face to face, Wade said with a smile. Geoffrey's messages were lagging behind a little, and once these two could truly acknowledge Leyland's strength, perhaps they would be in for a great surprise. Turbulent undercurrent with a buzz, the Morning Star Realm's transportation area suddenly flickered with a brilliant light. They have arrived! Alpha and Wade's eyes lit up at the sight, but Bevis' expression became rather probing and had an unyielding look to it. Several figures wrapped in a gentle ray of light appeared. After the light had dispersed, it revealed the figure of Leyland, Geoffrey, and the others. Sir Alpha, Sir Wade, and Sir Bevis. It's been a long time since we met. Leyland walked in front of the rest and greeted them with a smile. Sir Leyland, you broken through? Alpha twisted his hands together and appeared very excited. Yes, I have already reached the realm of rank 6, Leyland smiled, and behind his back the essence of his sun-like trussel appeared, its piercing golden flame sweeping across everyone with powerful energy undulations. As expected, this is the power of a breaking dawn rank. Alpha's eyes were bright and filled with tears. Our organization's long-cherished wish has finally been realized, Sir Leyland. No, Your Majesty Leyland. You are the pride of our bloodline alliance. Alpha respectfully bowed, along with Wade and even a seemingly unwilling Bevis. "Your Highness, have I been promoted to a new title?" Leyland seemed to find it funny as he raised his hand to support Offa and the others up from their bow. With this hierarchy, as Leyland had now advanced to a rank 6 Warlock and impressively become a Warlock Emperor, so he was now called His Highness. What a funny way to give titles, so when Bevis also advances, wouldn't the Bloodline Alliance have 2 Highnesses? Leyland humorously thought of the aftermath of that scene. 1557 years, it's already fully been 1557 years. Our Bloodline Warlock Monarch has finally appeared, but never had I thought that it would be His Majesty, Leyland, Wade said, which made Bevis' expression darken. He was still a rank 5 Warlock and did not have the strength to act against Leyland. He could only respectfully express his allegiance. No matter how he had schemed before in front of this absolute strength, it was as insubstantial as a spider's web that could be brushed away without leaving a trace. However, I can also reach that rank. In 100 more years, very quickly. At this moment, Leyland's gaze had also gone past Offa and Wade and had arrived on Bevis. "Sire Bevis." "Yes." Bevis put in his greatest effort to make his smile slightly more natural, but he disgracefully failed at doing so. His twisted expression made everyone who looked upon it want to laugh. "Your fog giant bloodline, when amplified by another set of giants' remains, you still have 87 years left before you break through. Work hard, you still have 65.1% chance of advancing to rank 6, Leyland said with a smile, and he looked as if he had completely seen through Bevis. How did he know? Bevis raised his head with amazement. He had always considered the fog giant's remains that he had obtained from Offa as his final hope and trump card, and never had he thought that Leyland would be able to tell. The gap between him and me has grown so big. Seeing that Leyland had a greater understanding of his bloodline than he himself, and had even calculated the probability of advancement, dealt a devastating strike to Bevis' confidence. Until now, he realized that his actions before made him look like an absolute clown, and he looked extremely ridiculous. Lord Leyland. After Leyland and the others had welcomed them into the headquarters, Offa and his group saw Leyland sit down. They still stood there ramrod straight, with solemn and respectful expressions on their face. I've come to the Central Continent today to relocate the Ouroboros clan and also take care of some other trifling matters. After that, I might permanently settle there, Leyland said. This surface Magus world was all the same to Leyland, and no matter how concentrated the elemental particles were, it would not be of any use to advancing his strength now. Relocate, settle. Is it because of the subterranean commerce? I've heard about it, but please let me speak bluntly, Your Majesty. Although we warlocks rely on bloodline power, the South Coast's weak elemental concentration will definitely still affect us. Offa and the others had anxious expressions on their faces. Their long-awaited rank 6 bloodline monarch had finally appeared, and they thought they could exact their revenge on the Central Continent, so how could they let Leyland go so easily? Would they really have to wait another 100 years for Bevis? Seeing Offa's expression, Leyland immediately knew what they were thinking in their heart of hearts. However, he did not expose them. Be at ease, I know what you are all concerned about. Before I leave, I'll settle this matter completely. Leyland indifferently waved his hand, but Offa and his group were still a little dissatisfied. They seemed to want to say something else, but they were all stopped in their tracks by Geoffrey's most severe glare. After Leyland had left, Geoffrey was surrounded by Offa and the others. What's the matter? Why did you stop us? Offa asked very calmly. They had been comrades for a very long time, so he was very clear about how Geoffrey was as a person and knew that he definitely had his own considerations. The earlier situation shocked me a little too much, and the news from the distant continent was rather delayed, so I couldn't tell you all about the latest situation. Geoffrey said with a wry smile, Lord Leyland is not an average rank 6 monarch. He is the person that we must pin all our hopes on. Afterwards, the shocking news began to spread throughout the entire Central Continent. The Bloodline Union's Warlock King, Leyland Farlier, had already stepped across the threshold of breaking dawn and entered the realm of rank 6. After the Morning Star Space had verified this news, they immediately invited other organizations to attend Leyland's celebrations. Many powerful Magi organizations, and even some monarchs had one by one expressed their intention to come themselves and meet with Leyland. In a short while, the entire phosphorescent swamp once again became the gathering point of the Central Continent, and it seemed like all the Magi were discussing this matter, and how it would affect the central continent. Sky City, the drifting garden. What? The parchment in Weir's hands dropped to the floor. How is this possible? He's already advanced to rank 6 and reached the same status as the Monarch of the Skies. How long has he taken? The Monarch of the Skies has already accepted Leyland's invitation and will definitely personally attend. This news is very trustworthy. This is reality. You must get used to it and accept it, my child. A middle-aged magi that looked rather similar to Weir's helplessly said. He knew, of course, how great the shock this news would pose to a genius like Weir's. His small achievements were nothing compared to Leyland. That terrifying fellow's speed at advancing made all the central continent's geniuses despair and crumble. Being born in the same century as him is your greatest misfortune, but also your greatest fortune. I hope you can step out from his shadow. The middle-aged man looked at Weir's with undisguised concern in his eyes. I want to go as well. I want to see exactly how far the gap is between me and him. Weir's gnashed his teeth, with an obstinate expression all over his face. Ah, you! The middle-aged man helplessly sighed. The reconstruction of Dew's City had happened. Under the blazing flame monarch's direction, many slaves put out their utmost effort and had completely rebuilt from the original ruins in the shortest period of time. The sacred flame had been relit to represent the blazing flame monarch's strength and might. Inside the city, within a giant sphere of flames, the golden blaze's boiling hot temperature had the power to melt the surrounding buildings. This phenomenon continued for nearly a few hours, and afterwards a slender figure emerged from the flames. The person was wrapped in a red cloak and had a small crown of flame upon their head. It turned out to be Melinda, who is now the blazing flame monarch. Over the years, after consuming so many precious materials and the power of dreamscape elven stones, finally I have mended my soul to 80% of its original self. The present Melinda had not only regrow a new arm, her aura had also reached the stage of rank 6. Leyland Farlier, you really have given me a huge shock. Melinda's expression was very complicated. She had previously been able to take revenge thanks to Leyland's help. However, he had attacked at the most crucial point and made her suffer enormous losses. Only now had she been able to recover. He's already broken through to rank 6. How interesting. Even bloodline shackles and the snake dowager couldn't stop him. As an old monster who knew of many ancient secrets, Melinda naturally knew what it meant to break through the bloodline shackles. He had the strength to resist the originator of his bloodline. It looks as if I can't take my revenge now, and I even need to try to mend our relations. Melinda licked her lips with a rich smile on her face. Just as well, that freshly caught little fellow would be a rather good gift. With Melinda's thoughts and a loud clap, a fire elf immediately appeared before her. Almighty Master, please bestow your orders upon me. The elf knelt on the floor with a respectful and humble attitude. That freshly captured witch, I think she's called Natasha, command the others to erase her attitude and make her compliant. Put her as one of our guards. Your orders will be put into effect. The elf spread its blazing wings on its back and flew out from the door. I really am looking forward to the ceremony. Melinda laughed brightly, and the fire in the rear hall suddenly grew several times more intense, as if it wanted to scorch the entire sky. In just a moment, the entire central continent was full of hidden undercurrents, as everyone turned their gazes towards the phosphorescent swamp. Beginning the ceremony in the phosphorescent swamp, due to the withdrawal of numerous warlocks of the Ouroboros clan, the space had become empty. They were replenished with warlocks that had been urgently dispatched from the Warlock Union, which was why everything seemed to be in order. After long talks with Jeffrey, Offa and the rest were now completely subservient to Leyland. A huge palace constructed to last for eternity, a building which could hold 10,000 people, was now urgently in construction. Large amounts of precious resources were used without fear of the expenses. You did well. Leyland's arms were behind his back as he gazed at the high mountains in the distance while speaking to Offa and the rest behind him. It is our honor to be able to toil for your majesty. Offa and the other answered respectfully, the gratitude in their eyes genuine. Their true bodies had already arrived at the phosphorescent swamp, rather than staying in the Morning Star area. The Warlock Union in the past was far too weak, and could only protect itself by having the rank 5 warlocks banding together, coupled with the battle might of the fort. For this reason, the true bodies of these rank 5 warlocks could not leave, and they could only move about using clones. This was the greatest humiliation to the Warlock Union. Now, with Leyland around, they had the confidence to exhibit their true bodies under the sun and not having to sneak around like mice in the morning star area. The feelings of gratitude they now had were true. By the way, Your Highness, are you really going to develop here? There may be benefits of the underground trade here, but the central continent is so much more vast. Offa spoke slightly hesitantly, but with obvious hope in his expression. Though the resources on the central continent are exceptionally plentiful, they've long since been taken by the many other organizations. Leyland watched Offa with a half-smile on his face, as if he had completely seen through Offa's thoughts. Of course, our organization can eliminate all those in our way and even launch a Magi hunting campaign and burn them all at stake. And then, Offa's face flushed red, evidently being stirred up by Leyland's words. After I disappear, what's going to happen to you all? Leyland's voice was icy cold and left every warlock's first deathly pale as if they had fallen into a world of ice. Why? Your Highness, you've already entered the realm of laws. What is there on the continent that can be a threat to you? Jeffrey and the others could not comprehend. In answer, Leyland merely chuckled. In the Magus world itself, I'm not a match for those rank 8 existences who survived the ancient final war. The astral plane is so vast, and there are countless worlds out there. Besides, I haven't reached the realm of immortality yet, and who out there can say that they are everlasting or immortal? Watching Offa and the rest leave, Leyland's eyes flashed with ridicule. What he'd mentioned was only part of the reason. More importantly, the benefits in the South Coast were already enough for the Ouroboros clan to survive and develop. No matter how amazing the resources in the central continent were, they were useless to him. In order to conquer the framework of profits in the central continent that had been formed over a long time, it would expend some time and effort on his part, as well as make enemies with monarchs just for something that was useless to him. If this was for Freya, Selene, or Gilbert and Emma from the Ouroboros clan, Leyland might perhaps make the effort. However, who was Offa? An ally from a scattered warlock union. This status was not enough for Leyland to be moved. Anyway, once he showed his strength and completely terrorized the Magi monarchs, they would definitely yield some profits to win him over and express their goodwill. After allocating all the resources to the Warlock Union, Leyland believed he had repaid them for all that they had done for him. On top of that, with him as a deterrence, the Warlock Union's future in the central continent would be shining. At the very least, those so-called anti-Warlock campaigns would no longer appear out in the open. With these, Leyland felt he'd done enough for the Warlock Union. While Leyland had thoughts of things like conquering the central continent and constructing Saw Warlock Empire or something like that, he gave up later. After all, for he as he was now, no matter how large an empire and organization he could make, all there was for him was pursuing eternity after becoming a rank 7 Magus. That was the #1 goal of the existences of laws. The realm of laws, existing together with these laws, was an eternal glory. Eternity was no longer but an excessive hope, but there was now a chance. For this little chance, these existences of laws were willing to give up everything, and Leyland was no different. Once this ceremony is over, I'll meet those existences of laws in the Magus world, sign the agreement, and then settle down. Leyland's eyes were profound. He had advanced by leaps and bounds, and had even made contact with the wide-ranging and deep power of laws. The various mysteries held within as well as his long life span gave him the urge to seclude himself for thousands of years and concentrate on researching, regardless of everything. With a higher status and more power, at a point where everything was easily obtained, all worldly things in the world did not seem as important to Leyland. It must be the same for those other laws of existences. A giant airship has been discovered. The symbol says that it's from Sky City, an organization with a first-class invitation. The sun shone brightly in the cloudless azure sky. All of a sudden, a large airship appeared in the air, the smooth surface of the warship as nimble and sharp as a swordfish, the metallic luster dazzling and flickering with light. The people at the interim command center on the ground were immediately flustered. Issue the guiding signal. Issue the guiding signal. This is the center ground of the Ouroboros clan. Airship that belongs to the esteemed Sky City, please follow our guide and park at Lot 23. Important information was relayed thrice, before there came an answer. All right. Rumble. The giant airship landed on the ground. Compared to the surrounding airships, it appeared manifestly superior and majestic. The cabin door opened. The first person to exit was a winged person with 3 pairs of wings, the pure white wings making him seem like an angel descending, full of a holy feeling. It's the monarch of the sky's true body. The surrounding stream of magi all went silent, and many bowed to show their respect. Esteemed monarch, please come with me. His Highness Leyland has come all the way to greet you. At this moment, a female snake warlock went forward and bowed reverently, showing the monarch of the skies the way as he descended from the exit. From time to time, some conscience whispered privately. The true body of a monarch, even in the central continent, breaking dawn powers rarely show themselves. Don't you know what this is for? With the rise of a monarch, there needs to be a true body with a similar status coming forward to congratulate him, which would otherwise be impolite. We might see the arrival of all the monarchs in the central continent here. This is a ceremony of the monarchs. Behind the monarch of the skies were many magi from Sky City, all having scholarly auras. As an organization with the most ample intellectual resources, scholarly magi existed in hordes in Sky City. Everything has changed. Weirs followed the crowd with a low profile, occasionally observing the surroundings. Besides the organization in Sky City, all the other high-ranked magi in the central continent had practically gathered here, creating a huge stream of people. With the morning star strength that Weirs was proud of, it wasn't that common, but also not that conspicuous. It was only at the arrival of rank 5 Radiant Moon magi that there were gasps from the crowd, and with the appearance of a monarch, there was a large-scaled commotion. Leyland Farlier, so you've already left me so far behind and reached the apex of the central continent, Weirs lamented inside. Everything, meaning the ceremony and all the glory, belonged to the young man, who he could not even begin to envy. Though they were all geniuses of the same generation, they had practically snatched all the glory that belonged to this generation. Even in ancient times, his talent must be that of a monster, right? Weirs laughed bitterly. He no longer had any thoughts in his head. When the disparity between them was so vast that it was incomparable, all resentment and insanity was pointless. Weirs knew this very well. Nice to meet you for the first time, or rather, we meet again, Sire Monarch of the Sky. The procession suddenly stopped, and Weirs lifted his head, seeing a young man wearing black Magus robes standing in front, a gentle smile on his face. He was young. No, rather than that, he was extremely young. At this age, one would be lucky just to be at rank 2 or 3 at this age. We're not on the same level anymore. Seeing his appearance, not one person in the procession dared move and bowed as they retreated, giving up the area to the 2 monarchs. Weirs might be unwilling to do so, but he had no choice but to follow the card. It's great to see you, Sire Leyland. I must say that you truly gave me a surprise. The monarch of the skies spoke up, voice gentle and full of a magnetic force. My name is Zaboful. You can just call me Zaboful. All right, Zaboful, please come with me. The blazing flame monarch and others of the continent have all arrived. Leyland led the way. So fast. Shock was evident in his eyes. He thought he had come rather quickly, but to his surprise, there were others ahead of him. It seemed like the shock and interest from everyone towards this newly advanced monarch was terrifying. While they were conversing, Leyland was observing Zaboful's true body. He'd seen Zaboful twice before, once in Sky City and during the besiege of the blazing flame monarch. All he'd seen were clones. In a sense, this was the first time they were truly meeting.